I'm Tyler Jobe, your Green Bay neighborhood reporter. As the indoor shelter season approaches, St. John's Ministries is going to continue to house homeless men and women in separate shelters. Steve Schauer, the Director of Community Engagement for St. John's Ministries, says this will be the second year the nonprofit splits men and women into separate shelters. And he says moving forward, it'll always operate as two shelters. Schauer says the organization felt going in that direction allows for women who may have been through a traumatic experience to share their stories together.
Sometimes there tends to be a male involved in the situation, and by removing that aspect of it, they can have more success going forward in the future.
Every year, St. John's shelters run from November 1st through April 30th. The police department says splitting the shelters up has not impacted its resources for calls for service.
We have a great working relationship with the police department.
Schauer says prior to last season, they only had one shelter at 411 St. John Street, and that had both men and women. Now, that shelter currently only houses men. The women's shelter, which just opened a year ago, is on 700 East Walnut Street, less than a mile away. From November 1st, 2021 through April 30th, 2022, police records show there were 187 calls for service at the St. John Street shelter. The records show during that same time period last year, there were 250 police calls at both shelters, 118 for the men and 132 for the women. Despite the uptick in police calls, a small percentage dealt with drugs and weapons. 2 years ago, there were 4 sexual-related calls at one shelter. Last season, between the two shelters, there was just one sexual call for service.
But now that you have two locations, there's more opportunity for calls to be made.
Schauer says over the last couple of years, they've taken in 50 to 60 more people than previous years. He says having two separate shelters will help keep people safe.
Women around other women, they feel safer. They feel more loved.
Now, St. John says their two shelters are last resort options. The nonprofit does have 2 year-round daytime resource centers, the Micah Center and a Wellspring right behind me, which is connected to the women's shelter. We'll post a link with more information about this on our website, NBC26.com. In Green Bay, Tyler Jobe, NBC 26.